welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast. For each week, we explore the impact of edtech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade focused on student support and digital experiences. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Higher Ed Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Hello and welcome everyone to this super special live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast at the AI show at the ASU GSP Summit. There's a lot happening here if you hear all the ambiance and the noise and everything, but we're excited to be here talking with a bunch of different folks. So our guest here, Alejandra, you are somebody who's going to be bringing, I think, with kind of the whole lineup of guests that I have, the most sort of comprehensive view on sort of the education ecosystem. So I'm excited to get your perspectives. But briefly, if you want to just introduce yourself and kind of what brings you to the AI show.
Sure, and no pressure for me to be bringing that comprehensive view. But yeah, I'm Alejandra Acosta. Great to be here. Thank you for having me. Currently, I'm the Chief of Staff at JK K-12 Company, a consultancy that connects edtech companies to school districts. So it's my first venture into K-12. I'm traditionally a higher ed person. I've had a 10-year career in higher ed, ranging from working directly with students as their college advisor to doing some policy and research, which is most of the work that I've done, and a couple of short stints in philanthropy as well. I'm here at the AI show because I just could not miss it. I've been working in edtech and AI for the past couple of years. And it's my first time being here, so I'm really excited to share some insights with you all.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll start with a big kind of picture question here. With the viewpoint that you have on kind of the broader education ecosystem, how do you see AI reshaping dynamics? I guess that idea that you're really like in a position where you're trying to help navigate those moments of sort of like kind of cross-pollination of like an institution or a school district or the ed tech company coming in or different tools and things. So like, how do you see AI kind of shaping those dynamics right now at sort of a big picture level?
Yeah, so I would say it's reshaping the environment in all of the ways, but also kind of in none of the ways.
Right.
I think like some of the things that can be the most impactful in both higher ed and K-12 have absolutely nothing to do with technology. Being student-centric, for example, pedagogy that is really interactive and caring for students. None of that has to do with AI, and none of that has to do anything with tech. So in a way, nothing. And I think that that's something that I want to challenge people to think about in this wave of AI. We think like, oh, everything has to change, and it does. But I think the basics and the fundamentals of education, of connecting with people and helping them meet their goals, of connecting and providing a safe space where people belong, that does not have to change. However, a lot of things are changing in many different ways, and I think that that's a good thing. It is intimidating, but I think it's a good thing because for many years we've known that both K-12 and higher ed have many limitations that don't work for today's students. And I'll speak mostly to higher ed right now because that's most of my expertise. So where do I see that AI is changing the ecosystem? From admissions, changing how we recruit students for college admissions, how students approach college admissions can also change. So are they working on their essays with a generative AI tool?
Right.
How we approach retention can be much more data-driven than before too. And maybe just how we connect with our faculty and students can be really different too. So lots of different things. I don't know if that covers if that's too high level.
No.
So bring me back.
Yeah, we'll dig in. Yeah, because I think I really like that you framed initially that our values haven't changed. Like the things that we're trying to achieve, the outcomes, our goals, and why we're doing the work that we're doing hasn't changed. And obviously any a tech company or whatever is going to be if I'm selling you something, it's like everything's changed. You got to use all these new things or whatever. And it's like, yes, maybe, but I'm going to do it thoughtfully to evaluate how is this thing going to help me still achieve the same goal I had yesterday. So I think that being a grounding thing where it can feel very overwhelming because it's a lot of new things very quickly, but then also just a lot of hype or just sort of I guess like bloating in this sense of just sort of like you're really inflating something, kind of like there being a bubble of just it being like, well, AI is perfect and you can do it wrong, use it for everything all the time, always. And it's like, all right, well, let's try to ground and make sure that we're returning back to like, what are those core goals, beliefs, values, and things we have as an institution, so I really like that, but I think, yeah, it is like something that is different in the sense that like it is undergirding kind of the entire student life cycle and making influence and changes there. So I think that is like an important thing that like, in a space like this, I do think you see, maybe more overwhelming kind of influence of like admissions or teaching and learning different things where like that does make sense. But I do hope that we continue to see more different like people and functional areas and stuff represented here because it is sort of like impactful across the board. So
yeah, and definitely, I would say that I do want education to change as as inspired by the AI wave. I think there is a lot of change that needs to happen. So I think some ways that it can change is like efficiencies. It's a very higher ed, especially, is a very like slow moving monster. So efficiencies there, and hopefully more than anything, what I would like to see is greater connection between students and the community with the institution. It can feel like we're very separated sometimes, so I'm hoping that AI really fosters connection.
yeah, because I think there's a lot of ways that could be achieved, but I think that that is something where like, digital transformation writ large, AI, I'll put kind of, in that camp, like can obviously like kind of push us apart and everything. It's like, well, how do we use these tools to be catalysts for
come
connection?
Closer together.
Yeah. So that's also just a really, really great call out. So the other piece, and this is kind of sort of like a gut check thing. How are you seeing sort of like AI literacy or like people acclimating to these tools and getting comfortable? Like, is that something, if you can kind of like ground it even like in your own journey, I guess, but like, what's your sort of feeling? This is only the second year of this event. And, I think in that time, every conference has sort of been sprinkling in their sort of, flavor of AI and everything. But what's your sense of like how people are sort of acclimating to building their AI literacy?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that because I was actually at AI Literacy Day just last week.
There you go, yeah.
At the Tech Interactive in San Jose. So that was really fun to see like 600, 700, 800 kids running around learning about AI at the museum.
Wow,
It was really
wow.
fun. And then after there was a summit where there were a lot of edtech and AI leaders too. And that was kind of the same thing they said, like this is moving super fast. It's only the second time that AI Literacy Day I think has existed.
Right.
I could be wrong there. But how am I seeing people's AI literacy improve or not? I think that a lot of the fear of using AI has kind of not dwindled away, but like it's reduced a little bit. So people are more open to exploring. I actually helped my mom use ChatGPT for the first time recently, and my mom's a really smart woman. She's a judge, but she had just never used this, and it was fun to see her do her prompts like they were a Google search. But then I could tell her, hey, this is actually like more conversational and more personalized. So that's not an education example necessarily, but I do think that that's one of the ways that I'm seeing people be more open to developing their AI literacy. I think there's a lot of room to grow still. I think playing with tools and solutions is a really great way to build AI literacy, but I think there's so much more kind of in that ecosystem, like how does an algorithm work? What is our criteria for a quality tool? What is our criteria for a quality result or product or answer from an AI solution or an AI tool? I think also knowing how to integrate AI into our workflows, as we like to say in edtech, into how we work. I think that still needs room to grow. It still has room to grow. I think right now people are doing a lot of like, oh, have it craft an email for me. And like, okay, that's great. That's a good entry point. But we can actually completely transform how we do the work in education by using AI.
Yeah. Well, I love that you did like through your answer, like again, kind of comprehensively cover where like, we need to get kids sort of like building their AI literacy because it's going to be something that'll
And
just
even
be in the
us
world.
adults, like,
right.
we're still
And,
learning too.
work with our parents or whatever else. And like, because I think it is like kind of nuts that you can just sort of like, go and like just start diving into the tools. Like on one hand, that's sort of like super helpful, but then that idea of like people will end up using it like Google or something. And it's like, well, no, we do have to kind of pivot the way that we're interacting with these things. But like, there's low barrier to entry, with using something like ChatGPT. So it's like making that as like a a positive that people can start playing with it, but then that there is a need for sort of like guided sort of interactions to kind of start building people's comfort and kind of effectiveness with it. And the idea of like something else, I guess, just what I was sort of sensing or feeling from what you're saying is that like, the sort of under the hood kind of improvements, the workflows and all that aren't maybe the like sexy, kind of flashy kind of things.
Sure.
It's like, those are also important. The things that are going to make like marginal improvements that are more than just sort of like, because obviously like AI in a sense have already existed with like autocomplete to help us write better emails or, whatever. So it's like, that I think is like a lot of people's just immediate sort of go-to. It's like, oh, I have to write emails all the time. It'll help me do that. But like, increasing sort of automation or personalization or like all these different things, it's like if you really just start embracing it fully and it just becomes more and more integrated into all the tools that we already use, like that's something else where like, a legacy tool, bringing it in and that being obviously like an entry point where it's like, oh yeah, I use, our CRM or SIS or, LMS all the time, and something coming in to sort of amplify its potential, not seeing that as maybe like a unnecessary like extra or add-on. It's like, no, I mean like it really should be embraced and like it's just going to be part of it. So
can I add one more thing about AI literacy?
absolutely.
Oh God, did I forget? I hope not. One more thing about AI literacy is that something that's really exciting me about AI literacy is the possibilities that are out there for young people and for this next generation. Something that I did at AI Literacy Day last week was show kids all the possibilities for their career or what they study in higher ed that are related to AI, even if it's not technical. So I think increasing our AI literacy is also seeing how we can create AI culture, AI systems that fit with the world that we want to see. So can you work in AI and not have any technical skills, quote unquote? I think yes. Can you be a marketer for an AI solution? Yes. Can you sell an AI solution? I think that's part of AI literacy, is seeing how we all have a role to play in the growth and expansion of AI.
Yeah, that's what I've loved seeing some examples. And I've always just wanted, like, again, all the hype or whatever else, it's like, what are the tangible, specific examples of people doing, like, all sorts of things with AI versus it being just sort of this, like, specter or sort of, like, existential thing, whatever. And I've loved seeing the examples of where, we did an episode on it in the recent past with American University, their School of Business, integrating AI into their curriculum for, like, non-technical, like the idea of, like, if you're going to be a business leader, you need to understand, how this will impact accounting or HR or whatever else. Like it's across the board, and the idea of making those sort of acknowledgments, putting it in the sort of teaching and learning side, but also like how do we communicate with one another, how do we like do all sorts of things. So I think that's a really good call out as well. So I'll give you a chance here. Obviously there could be a lot of conversations in all our episodes here about AI. So whether it is AI related or not, what do you see on the horizon for your work over kind of, let's say, like the next year or so? Like, what's on the horizon for your work?
For me personally, or like what I see in general?
I will say, for you personally, as a part of your organization, what are you seeing like over the next year? Because obviously, I think AI is again going to be always sort of in the mix. But if there's any other sort of just things that you're excited about, that you're working on, that you're doing, that maybe you want to tease or sort of look forward to.
I think for the next year, something that I'm really going to see is a focus on building authentic relationships. And I say this because independent of how you feel about the current administration, there are going to be funding challenges for schools and colleges. And so right now I've been working in business development for a bit. The last company I was at, I did business development. And now with JKK-12, I support our CEO, Jacob Cantor, in connecting schools and edtech companies to do good work together. Because there's going to be a lot of funding challenges yet again, I think having a focus truly on relationships is going to be really important, especially with what's happening in AI. Everything is changing. There's a lot of flashy tools out there. There's a lot of like, here's the latest thing, here's how we improved an existing product already. There's just a lot happening. And I think schools and colleges are going to be really bombarded with shiny objects. So to me, what I think I'm going to see and what I want to see is companies who are connecting with schools and colleges to really take a relationship first approach. And I think that schools and colleges should also be open to that, like be open to, wanting to partner with companies who actually care about them. And I think that's part of the very human side of AI that we're going to see, part of what I love about AI is that I think it's actually making our humanity stand out more and be more important. So I think what I see in the next year is humanity and relationships being really important in the connection between schools and colleges and edtech.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people have been, I think, reminding folks, like just good reminder in general, but especially now with all the things that you're saying as well. The idea that like education, the way that these sort of partnerships and things develop is through like authentic relationships and everything. So like the idea of like if I'm selling into a a school district or a college, university, whatever, like very rarely will you just be able to like cold call somebody, they pick up the phone, you're like, you know what, yes, I'll buy it, whatever.
That's
Like
not gonna happen.
it's maybe going to be longer. It's maybe going to be more based on like I empathize and understand like what you person at this institution are going through, what you need, what your values are, what all of that. And I think that's like a big component of it, and the idea of like we're going to have a lot of stressors and ambiguity and all this. So it's like if we can all just be building good relationships with each other, like for their own sake, just being in camaraderie with one another and whatever else. But then also for the way that these partnerships for edtech and everything are going to continue to drive things forward in this next wave, which will be kind of AI powered and everything. I do think that needs to be based on authenticity, because I think it's even that idea of like kind of what we were just saying, having to like help people just like get kind of ingratiated to AI, what it is, how to interface with it, prompting and everything else. It's like just sometimes the humility and authenticity of like, you need to teach me, you need to like kind of do whatever, like, because everybody's going to be at different comfort levels, but it is going to be, just continue to be that much more ubiquitous. So I think if we're all allowing ourselves to sort of connect in a very authentic way, we can have those moments where it's just like, all right, I'm here, I want to get here, I want to use this more, like, can you help me, can you teach me, and like, just creating more spaces for that kind of thing too. So I think that's all good stuff.
The reality is, I mean, you can challenge me on this, but nobody really knows what's going on. So this is such a beautiful opportunity to create a true partnership. Like schools and colleges are really gonna be going through it kind of soon if they're not already, which they are going through it already. So a partnership where you can reimagine how you do education, how you run a college, and having a true partner there, I think that's what I think is going to happen. Those are the companies that are really going to succeed, and those are the schools and colleges that are also going to really succeed, is having a true partnership where you're just figuring all of this out together. Like nobody really knows where anything is going to go, and if they tell you that they do, they're probably lying.
No, I absolutely agree, because I think that's like, the idea of like just AI's potential is that like, I think it can be so dynamic and personalized and contoured, because like the idea of if you're building like custom GPTs, like, that you can do now, it's like they can just take so many different flavors and shapes and, sort of vibes and everything. So the idea of just like, AI being this overarching umbrella, and the idea if we're having an authentic working relationship, it would be the idea of like, well, no, we want to build this to be like useful to you, sort of personalized to you, and like really effective at enabling what you want to achieve, versus it being like, well, this is just a thing you kind of use out of the box, and it's like you have to fit yourself into the system. Like I think we'll continue to see that AI is helping more tools fit into the institutional context they're working within, even like the departmental level and that sort of thing. But
so that's why I see for the future of the education ecosystem and AI broadly, but also what I see for the next year in my work working with JKK-12 and connecting schools to edtech companies that are open to having a true relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll end here. I think we'll do sort of the gazing towards the horizon and this question with everybody. But just like if you want to wrap things up, I'm going to give you the floor here. Your advice for folks in the space right now as they're navigating everything, obviously just AI related and everything else. There's a lot of kind of turbulence and ambiguity and all that kind of stuff. But like, what advice would you give to other leaders right now?
My advice, I want to gear it towards colleges. I think this, again, is such an opportunity to reimagine what higher ed can look like. So my advice would be two things, is let's move a little bit faster, still with the care that we have for our students and for our staff and faculty, but move a little bit faster and maybe try to have shorter cycles to figure out what's going to work. We can't continue to do a 1-year experiment and then take another year to develop the results. By the time that happens, it's going to be like way past whatever we were working with 2 years ago. So moving a little bit faster and being open to thinking creatively, I think would also be my advice for both schools and colleges. AI is, going to keep the fundamentals of humanity with us, but it's also going to change so many things. So this is such a great opportunity to think differently. Like, can we completely change, I don't know, how we teach or whether students live on campus or what that looks like? Can we change like how we admit students, like completely rethinking these systems? Like, we have a really cool opportunity to really like start from scratch, and AI is kind of like the fire that's causing that.
Yeah, that's what it is. I don't think that this is sort of like, head in the sky sort of thinking. I think it's unclear like when maybe this like perfect ideal state will come, but that idea of like, AI will allow for us to like focus on the more meaningful, personal, authentic human connections, and the idea of like, what would you do if, whether you're thinking in a professional or personal context, like what if you were freed up from having to do all the sort of repeated menial, tedious tasks? Like, what would you then focus on, whatever? So I think like in the higher ed context, like institutions are, only going to be hitting more and more sort of friction and barriers and hurdles in terms of resources and staffing and everything else. So like the idea of like move as quickly as you can towards trying to embrace AI as a way to get to sort of optimizing your potential and efficiency and everything else, because it is just kind of a rare moment, I think, to and I honestly, I'm catching myself thinking it because I think I'll do two sides of the coin of like, somebody was like,
two sides
well,
to the coin.
well, yeah, with all this, because it's like, oh, well, I have to like do more with less, but it's like, but I think AI could help you do less with more kind of thing. It would help you to sort of understand like, how would I be able to, evaluate sort of my programs to focus on, certain ones or whatever, like try to look at it from both ways of like, well, we have less, how can we do more with that? But then how can we maybe try to like right size and figure out how can we use all the tools in our tool belt to focus on the most impactful, differentiating kind of places or whatever. So yeah, and I'm sure all these episodes, I'm going to be geeking out, just really, all the ideas swirling, but I think this is really great stuff where I appreciate you helping to, I think, very much ground a lot of this conversation and the human elements, the connections, the communities, the values. So I think it was a great place to kind of get started with these interviews, and just really appreciate you for hanging out and talking about all you did.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting. Appreciate it.
The Higher Ed Geek podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.